What's up, everybody? So, this is another one of those old school movies that I just watched endlessly as a kid growing up. I could not get enough of it. I wore out that VHS tape like you wouldn't believe. Bloodsport, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme, Donald Gibb, a very young Forrest Whitaker, and Bolo Yen. If you don't know Bolo Yen, you need to watch more Bruce Lee movies. But anyways, the premises of the movie is incredibly simple, as the best movies are. It's the story of the quote-unquote true story of Frank Dux and his participation in this underground martial arts tournament, which is, I think at the time, one of the few movies that had this underlying theme of mixed martial arts, because every fighter has a different style. You have Kung Fu, you have Muay Thai, you have Sumo, street fighting, just in general. But it's like, okay, let's put all the best guys who are quote unquote invited, and you settle it on the mats and see who's the best. And it goes as you think it goes. It has, the character of Frank Dux, who is a military officer who basically goes missing on purpose so they can participate in the tournament. And you have Forrest Whitaker's character and his partner, I forget his name, who is basically chasing him to prevent him from participating in the tournament because he's too valuable to the military. And for his own reasons, he wants to do it. And it basically has to do with the man who trained him in martial arts, and how that family has a legacy of, the martial art being passed down from father to son. And then in this particular situation, the son is invited to participate in the tournament to, fulfill the family honor. And so it's such a guy fun. I remember watching a YouTube video many, many years ago of all of the very notable MMA fighters at the time, guys like Bas Rutten and George St. Pierre and Josh Barnett, a bunch of these guys, all saying how Bloodsport was absolutely formative. And then in them just entertaining the idea of becoming a mixed martial artist, of learning different styles. And then the UFC comes along and it's kind of like their dream fulfilled, because so many of them, and to a certain extent, including myself, we all watched this movie, joined a martial arts school of some style, and dreamed and fantasized about participating in one of these tournaments and becoming the ultimate winner. And it's just terrific fun. This was the star vehicle for Jean-Claude Van Damme. Before this movie, people had heard, if you're like into this world, you've seen him in No Retreat, No Surrender. So you kind of had an inkling of who he was, but he wasn't, definitely not on the level of other action stars at the time, like Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and specifically to martial arts movies, Chuck Norris. He was just kind of a nobody. And all of a sudden, this movie comes out. I didn't do any research. I don't know how well it did at the box office. I saw it when it came out on VHS, and myself and every single one of my friends knew about this movie. We talked about this movie. I even remember having a full conversation with one of my best friends at the time, basically giving a commentary as we're watching the movie. We're watching the movie together and talking about scenes that are going on, specifically the training sequence and then the montage that happens during the tournament, the Kumite. It's like, and then it was funny because then as DVDs became more of a thing, and then the special features of the DVD always was the commentary, either the director or the star, talking about moments in the movie and some aspect of it, whether behind the scenes or the build up to it or how it was created. And that was something that my friend and I did, just because we loved this movie so much. We had both of us each had probably seen the movie 20 times before we had that conversation, so we knew exactly everything that was going to happen. So we're talking about the scene, we're talking about a specific time we watched the movie, and what we thought about it and felt about it during that specific moment. This was definitely the beginning of my love and appreciation for all movies Jean-Claude Van Damme. I watched every single one of them after the fact. And it was, while everyone else was looking up to all of these other action stars, my guy was Jean-Claude Van Damme, And even though his acting is not the best, I think one of the things that really stands out about this movie is a particular scene where he's explaining to somebody why he is doing this to begin with. And in his entire career, it's probably one of his best performances, that moment, his best scene. Because, he's just not the best actor in the world. But in this particular moment, he's saying how, he wants to be the best he can be, not just for himself, but for the family he's representing and for his teacher. And that also kind of speaks to, the premise of the hero in general, where it's not about him. He wants to do it for something bigger than himself. And mythologically speaking, that's always why the hero wins against the villain. The villain always does it for more selfish reasons. The hero is doing it for something greater than himself. And another notable aspect that is awesome about this movie is the music. The soundtrack is great, whether it's the instrumentals that play throughout the movie or just the songs that are sung by Frank Bush, I believe is his name. And every single martial artist my age knows those songs. If they hear those songs, it kind of just takes them back. They become very nostalgic for a hot second. And it reminds them of maybe a simpler time, or definitely an enjoyable time watching the movie. Anyways, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. If you have, let me know what you think in the comments below. Smash that like button, give me a follow, and I'll see you guys next time.